in. It's always been very, very important to have activist groups like yourselves, and because without people like you, we just don't do as well. We receive tremendous assistance in the form of what Eric Cedillo and his group, the Citizen Election Advisory Committee, as well as right now we have our Vote Center Advisory Committee that's working, providing us feedback, as well as providing poll workers. It's a huge, huge goal. It's always been a huge goal of mine to have Spanish-speaking poll workers at every single location. You know, by federal law, we're supposed to have a certain amount of Spanish speakers in certain areas, but I really think it's important that we always have Spanish speakers at every location. So we've done really well with that this last year. I think we had 100% coverage of the 2022 election. Thank you for that. Thank you for your assistance. And so that activism is so important, and I always love working with groups like yours. So thank you so much. Just to give you a little update on what we're doing, you know, in all the locations that I've been in, I was kind of brought in as a person to rebuild the infrastructure, and that's quite important, you know. And I've been pointing to Southwest Airlines, and so on the surface, Southwest Airlines everything seemed to be going really well, right? And at the core, though, and so they had the shiny planes and everything was working fine until the organization was under stress. And so what we see that in elections a lot also. We buy shiny new equipment, everything's looking like it's going well, but at the core of your core infrastructure can rot away if you do not pay attention to it and continually rebuild it. And so in all the locations that I've been in, I've been brought in to kind of rebuild that infrastructure. And so here in Dallas County, we've been so fortunate to have such great support from our Commissioner's Court, providing us with the funds and the means and the support to rebuild our infrastructure. So we're 2 years into a rebuild that may take 4 or 5 years. But what we do is we go into every single aspect of what we do, and we look at our technology, we look at our software, we look at our hardware, we look at our buildings, we look at our personnel, we look at all those things to really take a hard look and make sure that it's up to date and modern. And so just recently we moved into a brand new building in 2020. We now have another brand new building right across the street that we just moved into this last summer. So tremendous support from the Commissioner's Court to get those sorts of facilities. And now we're digging deep into all of our processes, all of our procedures, to really rebuild that infrastructure, to make it solid, to make it so we don't have a Southwest Airlines moment when we're really under pressure, especially, for instance, in a presidential election, when the system is really under stress. So it's a long process, but it's one in which me and my staff really enjoy. We really love redoing all those processes. And the only thing I would ask from you is to have patience, because there's a lot of things to do. And so we prioritize what are the most important things to do, and we've rebuilt our vote by mail, we've rebuilt a lot of our elections infrastructure. We just got some brand new servers, some new ballot counting internal servers, and so we're constantly doing all those things behind the scenes that you may not be aware of. We've also done some things most recently at the polling places, you might have noticed. New signage, vote center signage, bilingual and now trilingual. Now everything we do is in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And so, and who knows, in another couple of years we might have another language. And so we will continue to refine that, and we just continue to work for you to try to make elections better. Now what's really important though is that we hear back from you. And through organizations like Citizens Election Advisory Committee, to hear, because we need your guidance. We get kind of stuck in our ivory tower, and we think we know what to do, and I think we got a pretty good handle on what to do. But in essence, we really need feedback from the community to help us, to guide us on how to prioritize our rebuilding. So, having said all that, I think I could go for hours. I'm an elections geek, and usually they have to shut me down. But I think I'll go ahead and open up for questions now.
Mr. Scarpello, can you talk briefly about all the voting centers and the voters, all the different election polling places that we're currently, closing, and why?
Perfect. So, in 2019, Dallas County chose to move from a precinct model to a vote center model. And I know a lot about vote centers because vote centers were born originally in Colorado, when I was in Colorado. And in Colorado, we moved to a vote center / vote by mail model. Then we took that to California, and we did the same thing in California. And it's a very good model because people can vote where they want, when they want. And they're not limited to an individual precinct. So on the one hand, it's a great model. Colorado and California do it a little bit better than Texas because Texas still has very, very restrictive rules about vote by mail. And I would love to see that open up because I like to see people be able to vote any way they want, and vote by mail is a really important one. But that's the hand that we've been dealt by the legislature. So we're dealing with that. So we still have the vote center model, which is great. And so when we went to a vote center model in 2019, the Vote Center Advisory Committee at that time recommended that we take all of the precinct locations and then automatically convert them over to vote centers. And so we increased the number. I think we have 469 vote centers in Dallas County. Now that's probably adequate for a presidential election, and probably necessary for a presidential election when you have 65% turnout. The problem is in certain elections, like May elections, we have 8 or 9% turnout. And so what it ends up being is it ends up being very highly inefficient to have 450, 460 vote centers open when you have such low turnout. And that's very difficult for many reasons, and most importantly is financially for the cities that participate in those May elections. They have to pay for it, and it's very, very expensive for them. So they've wanted us to reduce our number of polling places. I'll get your question in a second. And so in addition to that, it's very difficult with poll workers. So poll workers, when it comes to a presidential or gubernatorial election, there's high interest in voting and there's high interest in working. But in a May election on a Saturday, there's low interest in voting and low interest in working. And we have a very difficult time getting people to work. Democratic Party, Republican Party working their tails off, recruiting, but we still have a difficulty getting people to work. And we have some shortages then. So in May of 2022, last year, because of those shortages, we had no-shows. And so we had to shut down some individual locations. And that's unpredictable for our voters. They go to a location, oh, it's not open. So what we want to do is have more predictability, less cost for our jurisdictions. And so right now, the Vote Center Advisory Committee is studying all of our locations and determining which ones should stay open and which ones should not stay open. And then we have a minor reduction. Right now it's looking like 350, 360. And the other thing that's really important about that is a lot of our locations are not ADA compliant for people with disabilities. And that is problematic because there's some people that are ready to sue the county to say you need to have ADA compliant locations. And so we're taking a hard look at those to make sure that all of our locations are ADA compliant. So with vote centers, there may be slightly, the concept is, there may be slightly less locations, but they're better quality locations. Better parking, better ADA compliance, better lighting, the whole works, better power, internet. And so right now we're out surveying every one of our locations. I think we've resurveyed about 350 of our 500 locations. We go in there with iPads, and we got this really cool application. We take pictures. We really have really good research about our locations now, where we didn't have that information before. Yeah. Question?
Honorable Espinosa, and then Benton Jones. Honorable Jones. Here.
David Espinosa, why is it?
David Espinosa from Grand Prairie. My question is, why is it now so difficult to get voter information from Dallas County? Voter list. So, for example, if you want to get voter information from a particular district or city, it's so confusing that I didn't know that I had to screenshot my receipt, send it back, and then they would send me an email back, but only because someone guided me through that process. And before, it used to just be where you would request the data, you pay for the data, and then they give it to you. Now it gets ran by different departments, and then finally it comes back, and then they don't explain to you that you have to send a copy of your receipt, email them back, and then you get the data. So it's kind of like puts us in a position where, you know, you just give up. You just give up, and then you're sitting there without any data to, like, for example, if you're a candidate, you gotta wait around, and then you gotta find other resources where it's like, they haven't emailed me back, then you get it from other sources.
I can answer your question. So, as you guys know, or you may know, there's been a huge influx of what are called public information requests. And this huge influx started about 2020, and the county was getting overrun with these requests. And the elections department was slow to answer those requests. And so as a result of that, the county administration changed its policy. And the DA's office now controls all public information requests because they're making sure they get answered in a timely fashion. So they're harassing every department. Make sure you get those public requests answered. And so them taking that over has created a bit of red tape. And so what we've been doing in the last month or so, a couple months, is we're working with the DA's office to change that procedure. So what we're doing is we're saying, here's all the information the public might want. Here's something that could be classified as a public information request that needs to go through the red tape because they have to redact the information, et cetera, et cetera. And here's stuff that's just on the menu that we can sell over the counter. And so that what we're trying to do here in the next couple of weeks is to reduce that red tape. So when then someone comes in and says, I want a walk list, I want a list of registered voters, et cetera, I don't have to go through the public information request portal. I don't have to deal with the DAs and all the attorneys. I just come right to our office and I can get it over the counter. In addition to that, my philosophy is, what do we got to hide? Why even make someone go through that? Push as much information as possible onto our website. Make it free and have it out there. Just push it out and not have to do any work whatsoever. So we're in the middle of making that conversion.
Thank you.
Honorable Jones.
Thank you so much for the presentation today. I wanted to know, when it comes to the vote center models and vote centers that are open, is there a way, or could you speak to any ways that the elections department is working to provide more notice of the early vote and election day voting locations? So often those locations are only known a couple of weeks, before those centers open. So having some kind of way to communicate about that earlier so that groups like this can communicate to voters of the open vote centers, and also during those election days, noting if there's any kind of way to utilize social media to communicate about the closing of vote centers for whatever reasons that may come up at last minute. Thank you.
So when we converted over to vote centers back in 2019, I think there was a lot of media coverage, but the county itself didn't do a lot to publicize. And that's one of the things that we collectively realized this last year. We said, there's still a lot of people that don't even understand that you can vote anywhere at any location. They still thought that they needed to go to the precinct polling place. And so this last year, we worked with Commissioners Court. Commissioners Court very generously allowed us to spend $605,000 in the November election, and then another couple $100,000 last spring. And so we've spent nearly $1 million in, I don't know, how many of you guys ever saw did you see our commercial run last year? You did. You guys did see the commercials run on TV? So we had commercials basically to tell people, prior to any election, go to our website. This is what those commercials said. Go to our website, use our lookup tool, our vote center lookup tool. And our vote center lookup tool allows you to find a location, look at wait times to see if there's any wait time. You know, there was like green light meaning less than 15-minute wait. The yellow light was between 15 and 30-minute waits, and the red light was over 30 minutes. And almost all of our locations were green, by the way. But it allowed people to go to that website, find a location, then one that's convenient for them, and then to get driving directions right on their phone and through Google Maps. And so it's very convenient, and so we want, and we also spend money on social media. We have our new communications manager that's doing a lot with social media. A lot of stuff I don't quite understand, but he does. And through radio ads, different ads, things like that, and hitting people in many different ways through different avenues to try to get the word out about that vote centers are constantly fluctuating, because even when we want to open a vote center at a location, sometimes that location's under construction, or they don't, they don't want us there for some reason, they have an event. So those are always fluctuating, so we want people to be in the habit of going to their website, doing a lookup prior to any election, and then using those tools to find the one that's convenient for them.
Excellent. Ms. Ramirez.
Good morning, Mrs. Capone. My name is Sandra Duarte. When you first arrived to the community, I was on the CIAC committee. You said earlier, people like you and groups like you. So I hope you're referring to the Latino community. My question is, what is the ethnicities of your staff and personnel? Because we need representation. And also, during elections, I think you start too late figuring out the machines aren't working. So since the voting machines are sitting idle before an election, do you have a process to check those machines prior to election day? Because since I was in CIAC, people call me, and then I have to in turn call the DA or call your staff and say, how come the machines aren't working and 2 hours late starting up? Do you have a process to make sure that those are maintained well?
Sure, great question. So this gets back to the building the infrastructure, rebuilding the infrastructure. So this equipment was purchased mostly in 2019. So now it's 3-4 years old, and like any computer, they start to age out a little bit. And so it's important that we maintain them and prepare them properly for an election. So in fact, we contract with our vendor, and it's on a maintenance cycle. In fact, we just completed doing about 5,000 pieces of equipment, where they just came in and they go through A to Z and they rebuild and fix and maintain it. So that just got completed here about 2 weeks ago. And so in addition to that, then to prepare the equipment, we never used to do that. We used to do a lot, and this is true of a lot of things within our office, where people were doing things by memory, institutional knowledge, and they would do it. And the problem with that is, these days there's a lot of turnover. And so what we've done is, in every department, we go and we pull stuff out of people's heads, we put it into checklists, we put it into task lists, automated, computer systems, And so when we're preparing that equipment, we use checklists. And so have they done this? Have they done that? Have they prepared everything? Now, having said all that, it's still electronic equipment. And electronic equipment fails. And it fails at a higher rate than I would like to see. And so what's really important then is to monitor and react. So if you come to our office on an election day, you'll see we have a whole control center, a big room with big maps on the wall, electronic. We have 25 technicians out in the field that do nothing but service that equipment. We got 45 inspectors that are out inspecting for locations and troubleshooting, other personnel and procedural matters. And so that is kind of all new. We've built that over the last couple of years. And so that we're reacting much better than we ever did. And we've gotten some new software to handle all the tickets coming in. It's a very large operation. It reminds me of when I was in Omaha, Nebraska. I worked at the Strategic Air Command, and they have a big, giant maps of all the nuclear warheads and all that. Probably releasing secrets I shouldn't say, but that's what we aim to do. We have this big control room to try to react to fix those things.
And what about the ethnicity makeup of your department?
We are very diverse. I don't have those statistics, but I can provide those to you. I can tell you that our communications department, we have, you guys all know Esmeralda, Laura Varela, Nick Solorzano, our communications department in particular, we have a lot of Hispanic members. And then throughout our organization, we do also. So we are very diverse.
One last question is about security. I know that the voting is not done digitally. They're done with thumb drives and they're carried by constables from place to place. What is the security you have in place? Because 1 year, when I was there observing for a candidate, they opened up a package and I think it was University Park, and an SMU thumb drive fell out of a bag that was not belonging to that precinct. So how did that mistake happen, and what are you doing to avoid it? Because that tells me that somebody between SMU and University opened that package, switched the thumb drive, and now we have a different outcome.
Yeah, that gets back to rebuilding the infrastructure, right? So we just got, there was a 2020, the Secretary of State did an audit of the 2020 election. That was prior to me being here. And in 2020, for instance, we had one entire vote center where the USB stick was never counted. And so there's 154 votes that never got counted. It's because we didn't have a good infrastructure in place to inventory those when they came in. So now you'll see when you come into in fact, you don't have to come in. You can watch it on TV. Our Central County station has live streaming cameras during an election, and you can watch all these USB sticks coming in, and you'll see a whole team there. They're opening them up, they're breaking the seals, they're inventorying them as they come in. And so it's that issue that you're talking about has been resolved by a rebuilding of that process.
Mr. Scarpello, over here. My last question, the last question, I think. But anyway, I wonder, with our population growing, with a lot of the restrictions being placed on your right to vote, I'm probably the only guy here that remembers what a poll tax used to be, because I paid it my first time that I voted. I always thought that since the Voting Rights Act was passed, that would at least make a level playing field for everybody, where people of different races and nationalities will have the right to elect their own representatives and their own city council, etc. But it seems now that has turned around to where they're placing all kinds of restrictions, and in Texas in particular, the Democratic Party is doing everything to keep us from voting. And it seems to me like in a democracy, we ought to give everybody that is eligible the right to vote. Unfortunately, that's not what's happening. What's your opinion on that?
So that's a great question, and because I can tell you when the Voting Rights Act was retweaked and reversed, was in 2014, I think it was, and so there was not coverage in Texas anymore. And at the time I thought, that's not a big deal, election administrators, they're out to do the right thing. That they will make sure that everything's fine. Boy, was I wrong. Because what we found since then is it's not the elections administrators it's the legislatures. And they are aggressively doing things to suppress voting, in my opinion.
Thank you.
And that is a problem, in my opinion. I'm not only an elections administrator, but I'm prior to my life in election administration, I was a Democratic Party activist. And so, as wearing that hat,
Do you suppose that since our community has grown by leaps and bounds, in the school systems of Texas, the public schools, about 54% of those students, of the 5.5 million people, are of Hispanic origin. So you know what's going to happen in 5 and 10 years. We are the workforce of the state for sure, but hopefully we'll be also the numbers that go into college and have the opportunity to vote. And I think people like you and in the metropolitan areas, which appears like the state is going after those metropolitan areas like Dallas and Houston and San Antonio and Austin, etc., for which we fail. We hope that we can make coalitions. We hope we can make coalitions with rural Texas.
and just to answer that, I can tell you this. One of the things that, coming from California, a very liberal state, Colorado, pretty liberal state, we had very voter-friendly laws. And I'm proud to say that I was part of making that conversion to make those states more voter-friendly. I had some delusions of grandeur, thinking that I could do some of the same here, and we do work actively with our lobbyists and with other counties to try to modify and make Texas's laws a little more voter-friendly. But that's a tough one in the legislature.
Thank you for your presence here today.
Thank you. And let's give a round of applause for Mr. Carmelo. And since we have some state representatives here today, I do have to say there is a proposal to close voting centers in colleges, which is something that we passed at the Commissioner's Court, and I have the pleasure of spearheading at the court. And guess what? They have shown that a lot of young people, a lot of our college campuses are coming out and voting in great numbers in those colleges locations. So we need to be sure that we stop those kind of proposals. So thank you so much, Mr. Scarpello, for your work, and we look forward to continue working with you. A big applause for Mr. Michael Scarpello. And now we're going to introduce Mary Santini very briefly, and then Hector and I have been fighting to introduce Victoria Nieves, so I'm going to let him do it. So I already told Mary that she was going to be next. So our next speaker is someone that I have the pleasure of working for many years in Grand Prairie. She has been a strong advocate for Latinas and especially for Latina business owners. She is the founder of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Grand Prairie. Her name is Mary Dominguez Santini. She is a business owner, community leader in Grand Prairie. She has a strong background experience in business development, finance, and chamber relations. Ms. Dominguez, a product of an incubator program, has revived this program to help entrepreneurs reach their full potential. She has numerous awards, but one of the ones that I have to say, she was the first Hispanic woman to serve as president for the Grand Prairie Independent School District Education Foundation, and is the oldest foundation in the state of Texas. Ms. Dominguez Santini has earned numerous recognitions throughout her career, including earning the Mary Dominguez Santini's Day, October 13th, in the city of Grand Prairie by Mayor Ron Jensen, and the Citizen of the Year by Dallas Commissioner Dr. Elba Garcia, Mujeres Imparables by Telemundo 39, and Mujeres Legendarias by Ford, to name just a few. Es importante tener una alianza empresarial para nuestra comunidad hispana, hacer uso de mi experiencia para el beneficio de nuestra comunidad y nuestros emprendedores, she says. When women work together, great things happen. Let's give a great welcome to Mary Dominguez Santini.
Good morning, buenos días. Buenos días. Well, ya no me voy a presentar, gracias. Thank you very much. I have been asked why did we start a Hispanic Chamber of Commerce? Why? Because 5 million Latino Hispanic businesses contribute to $800 billion in the economy and over 100 billion in payroll. Grand Prairie is a majority city. We need to have a voice. We need to work together. We need to serve our small negocios. We all love big brand names, but the driving force of the economy somos nosotros. Los chiquitos con un corazón muy grande y una mente aún más grande que el corazón. So, we started May 2 years ago. We're going to be 2 years in May. We have over 200 members. What has helped us grow so rapidly was the incubator program. I started as an incubator here in Oak Leaf 25 years ago. When I sat in front of that computer on Sang Street, and I would look at the computer, at this top, I am a dinosaur, 60 years old. You know, it was easy for me. But then I was trying to figure out how is this program going to benefit me? I would sit in a computer and learn how to do a balance sheet, how to write even my resume, how to do my business plan, how to do my profit and loss. My vision that I have for negocio, getting it from my mind into a piece of paper where I can execute and put it in action. And be realistic, because we all want $1 million. But how to get that $1 million, how to become successful, which we all have a different way of measuring our success or a different definition. But it's always important to know that the basic is knowledge, resources to be able to grow. Our small negocio, our incubator program, has graduated 31 negocios in Grand Prairie. We have 31 small negocios that have taken the incubator program. It's a 3-month course, the second Tuesday of the month, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. We have different professions. Banks, because we know that our negocios, the number one struggle is lack access to capital. They have the idea, I'm a small business, I need money, but the bank is not going to lend me money. No tengo cómo me lo van a prestar. Let me tell you, the banks are here to make money. They're here to lend you money. They're here to show you. It's just how you approach them. And that's our job. We should be, as a resource platform, we should be able to educate you, bring you the resources and prepare you. So when you go to our bancos, you know how to access that capital that is available for you. And another, we're really strong on the financial part. When I talked to our deputy city manager, Steve Dye, before starting the chamber, I said, Steve, I survived COVID. But how many small negocios did not survive that? We're not rich, muchachos. We can live comfortably. But how many negocios, out of 10 negocios that folded, 7 of those negocios could have been saved if we didn't have an English barrier, if they had the Spanish-speaking people to tell them, hey, we have the resources to help you. But they didn't know how to get the word out. Well, we thought when you said, Mary, when you register legalmente, cuando estén listos, come and I will be more than happy to support your goal. Okay, so I got my folder, said, venga, aquí está. Open it. So you're legally assessed, more legally established. That's why I'm here. Because we had had this conversation, we know what is needed in our city. I can't do it alone. I need everybody to help us bring resources. If you know about our resources available for our negocios, please share it. Don't withhold information. Because like any other ethnicity, working together, sharing information, is how we're going to be able to accrue the goals that we have of helping each other and growing. Like I said, the Chamber's well over 200 negocios, and we're proud of that. It hasn't been easy, but I love every single day. In the short and in February, we got 17 new members in 1 month. That tells you right there the need that we have, the need that, our Grand Prairie is a majority city, and I hate using that word minority. 25 years ago, entrevisté a Pepe Aguilar, and it has always bothered me. I don't consider myself a minority. Everybody in this room is big. Le dije, Pepe, and I'm going to say it in Spanish because that was my interview. Pepe, ¿qué piensas tú de que a nosotros se nos catalogue como una minoría? Sus palabras las tengo aquí como si hubieran sido ayer. Dijo, grave error que nosotros, los hispanos, hemos permitido al dejar a otras personas que nos llamen minoría cuando somos una mayoría entre una gran minoría. So keep that in mind. Thank you very much. I'm not going to take, I'm going to be respectful. Muchas gracias. I love seeing mujeres in power. Thank you for the invitation. And another hand that I work in the community is Hispanic Heritage Ambassadors. Gracias, comisionada. We were struggling. We were doing food pantries. And we got a small grant. Thank you, comisionada. Gracias for helping us, Dallas County. We have now extended our food pantry instead of once a month to doing it every Wednesday of the month. Poquito, pero con seguridad. Gracias.
Thank you, Mary. Any questions? Any questions? I don't. Yes. Oh, okay. Over there. Behind partner. Your question? There we go.
Buenos días. Yo soy nueva en Texas, tengo 25 años, apenas llegué de Monterrey. Primera generación, como quien dice, mis hijas que nacieron aquí. Pero quiero también hacer un comentario, Semari. Yo soy de Grand Prairie, la única ciudad que he vivido en Estados Unidos. Y he trabajado por los 25 años que he estado aquí, he trabajado en escuelas.
She's a newcomer to the city of Grand Prairie, and she's been in Grand Prairie for just 2 years.
I've been here in USA for 25 years. I live in Grand Prairie for my 25 years. And I've been working my almost 25 years in the schools. And I know, I can tell you a lot, but one thing is talking about pantry food. We have students, we have families that they don't have nothing to eat tomorrow. Kids go to school and they don't know if they're going to have dinner at home. So they want to eat double at lunch. So thank you, Mari. I know you these 25 years and I appreciate what you and all the sponsors, because you know by yourself, you have a lot of sponsors, and I know you're one of them. Thank you, Mari. I see kids crying and parents crying, and our first language in Español. Gracias.
Thank you. Muchísimas gracias. Any other comment or question? Over there, I cannot see, but if you...
Hi, my name is Jasmine Carter. I'm the Community Relations Officer for Sheriff Mary Brown's office. I'm listening to you speak about the incubators, and I work with a lot of teenage youth. I wanted to know if you had anything geared around that I can send the kids to in the Grand Prairie area. I've seen a few conferences do something for youth to help them realize that they can actually start a startup or get their small business off the ground. But do you guys have something like that so I can reference it to our kids?
No, we do not have a youth, but we do work very close with the district. And if we know that the business, which is Dubisky, I'm pretty sure they're having their experience day today. If there is an assistance and they need help, because I do partnership with the students, I bring them in and they work in a chamber. And so we do collaborate with them and the students, but I do know that we do not have a youth program specifically, the chamber that will, benefit the students. However, I am partnering with them. I do use an internship from the estudiantes, and I do know that our school has a business program at Dubisky for seniors looking to start a negocio. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last question. Ms. Cervantes.
Mi nombre es Gloria Cervantes. Usted acaba de decir, señora, que somos mayoría en minoría. Y de que nos digan que somos minoría, lo merecemos. ¿Y sabe por qué? Porque nosotros como ciudadanos no educamos a nuestros parientes a que salgan a votar. Si nosotros queremos que se nos respete, primeramente es el voto. Si quieres contar, vota, y si no, no cuentas. Entonces, aparte de eso, le diré que podemos tener los mejores maestros. Lo que pasa es que ahorita la juventud, aparte de eso de educar a los maestros, nosotros como padres debemos educar a nuestros hijos en la casa.
Okay, gracias, Mr. Cervantes, por el comentario. Mr. Cervantes says that obviously it's our duty to get out on vote if we want to be called a majority. And then we can agree to disagree. With that being said, I do agree with the point that we need to do better in getting out our vote. I mean, that is going to be the power of our future. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but with that being said, we need to do better educating our communities, our families to get out and vote. Okay. With that, I'm going to let Vice President of LULAC, Hector Flores, introduce our next speaker, Shining Star, one of our proud representatives here in Texas and in the Latino community. Hector?
Okay. Now, let's give every speaker the respect of listening to them and quit the chatter down a little bit. Have your meals. But I want to also recognize former Sheriff Lupe Valdez, who joined us. And there may be some other elected officials or other wannabes that may want to be recognized. We'll leave that at the end so you can tell about your different projects, okay? First of all, I just want everybody to know that amongst us we have a young lady that has broken a lot of thresholds, moving this community forward. I remember her as a LULAC member, as a youth member in high school. That's how we met the first time. Not only was she an outstanding LULAC youth member, but also she went on to become the president of the youth throughout the country. And not only that, but she was able to do all kinds of stuff since then, go to law school, graduate magna cum laude from law school, but also has been just a star in Austin with the different issues she's taken on, particularly those that pertain to females, and the advocacy that's there for our community. I bring to you Victoria Llave Creado.
One more thing, Victoria also was elected to serve as chair of the Mexican American Legislative Caucus, the largest and oldest Latino caucus in the country, becoming the first woman in 30 years since our lovely Irma Rangel. Not to mention she has passed several, for rape kits to be tested, to be sure that the Lavinia Act was enacted. And thank you, Victoria, for not only passing all those laws, but for women, but also getting us some of the money to be able to test all those rape kits. So, un placer, un aplauso de LULAC, Chorizo and Menudo para nuestro representante, Victoria Miao. Buenos días.
Let me tell you that I recognize that we follow, and there are big footsteps that have been left to fill from Dr. Elba Garcia, who was one of our first Latinas elected here in Dallas County. Without the work that she has done, it would not have been possible for many of us that have came after. The things that I have learned in this organization, the Chiquitas, since I joined when I was in high school, and I see people here. I think I saw Connie Ramos here. Connie and I used to tag along. She would let me tag along with her, and we'd go to the different high schools throughout the District 3 to organize LULAC youth councils, because we knew that the leadership development programs that LULAC provides are training our next generation of leaders. So I'm very grateful. And before I give my lunch update, want to acknowledge and thank LULAC for all of the doors that is opened for us, and we want to do the same for the next generation. People like Hector Flores, not just since he was national president, took me under his wing, and I learned so much from him. I learned so much from, I see Ed Elizondo who's here. Ed Elizondo and Richard Zambrano used to let me tag along with them when I was in high school and college to small towns all across Texas. hearing and meeting with the community about injustices that they were having, from issues with their school board, issues with their police department. I remember very vividly meeting with a group of parents. I don't remember what town it was in, but they would not allow, for example, the Latino students to go to the bathroom during the day, but they let other non-Latino students. So what do you think happened? That's a civil rights violation. And so things like that opened my eyes about the need to learn the law. It's the reason that I decided to go to law school. It's the reason that I not just wanted to learn the law to advocate for our community, but hopefully one day write laws. And I'm incredibly honored to be able to do that as a state legislator today. In the Texas House of Representatives, right now, we are, oh, and before I begin, I also want to recognize my family, because y'all know, y'all may have heard I have a new last name, me llamo Criado. My husband is here, Pedro Criado, they call him Kiki. And we're here with my compadre Israel Rick, and I'm really excited because I have a new stepdaughter, Zoe, who's here. So thank y'all for coming out. So here's the deal. The Texas legislative session, we're in session every odd numbered year. So we're not in session every year. It's for a certain number of months. It's from January the 2nd. Oh, and I want to recognize and see one of my colleagues, State Representative Benton Jones, who's joined the legislature this year. So we are in session from the second Tuesday in January all the way through the end of May. And during session, this is the time where we pass a budget, several $100 billion for 2 years. We pass laws that impact the state of Texas. And once we get through these 140 days, we don't go back for another 2 years. So everything impacting the state, whether it's the grid, whether it was COVID, whatever issues facing our state, this is the time where we are in session to be able to pass laws to make significant change. So the first few months are typically committee appointments. So I'll share with you my committee appointments. There are only 4 women committee chairs in the entire Texas House. I'm one of the 4. Of the 4, there's 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. I'm one of the Democratic women. The other Democratic woman is Miss Infronia Thompson, who served 50 years in the Texas legislature. She's our longest serving woman, incredible, has broken a lot of barriers. I'm really honored to be in that company. I'm the only Latina. We have to continue to advocate to make change, to make sure that we have equity on every different committee, but I'm grateful that the speaker appointed me as a committee chair. We also have the Mexican American Legislative Caucus. As Dr. Garcia mentioned, we're the largest and oldest caucus in the entire country. We have a caucus, a Latino caucus, larger than California, New York, Florida. So what we do, we're a bipartisan caucus. We have both Democratic members and Republican members. It's majority Democratic. But the laws that we advocate for are to make sure that we fully fund our schools, to make sure that we provide opportunity for every student to go to college. And I'll talk about a community college finance bill in a minute. We advocate for Latino-owned businesses. We're partnering with all of the Latino Chambers of Commerce who came down to Austin a few weeks ago to advocate for access to capital, for support for Latino-owned businesses, for support for historically underutilized businesses, which Latinos fall under that category, to be able to get access to dollars from state money, and there's hundreds of billions of dollars available. To issues that disproportionately impact women, like Latina equal pay. Latinas earn in Texas 44 cents on the dollar for the same work that a man does. But we're the center of the family, and so there's a lot of things that we can do if we close that wage gap for Latinas in Texas. But we're making significant progress. So a lot of times when y'all hear Latinos are voting in some of the highest numbers we've ever had, when I see Lupe Valdez here, she broke barriers. She was correct me if I'm wrong, Sheriff, you have the highest number of any Latino or Latina candidate statewide, the highest vote count. Is that correct? In the history of the state of Texas. So she broke records. record, the fact that Latinos and Latinas in our community were the majority in this state, like was stated earlier, we're voting in some of the highest numbers. That is why there are attempts to try to roll back our rights. We don't have that equity. We're advocating hard so that every single district has an opportunity where Latinos, where we have an opportunity to elect folks. We want to make sure that that occurs. And so Malk is a plaintiff in redistricting litigation. We've got numerous partners on voting rights legislation, redistricting litigation as well. But one of the things that I want to put on your radar, y'all may have heard, was the governor's statements regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when we think about some of the fights that have been had from LULAC's founding back in 1929 and throughout the years, the founding of our caucus, this is our 50th anniversary. When you think about the fights that our forefathers and foremothers had to advocate for diversity and all of the progress that we've made, the fact that for some diversity is now a bad word just does not make sense, but it's a real battle that we have to have. And so while we're pushing forward to making sure that we have dollars in our public schools, we want you, and we're asking you to raise your voices when these bills come up for committee. We'll be in touch with LULAC, who did come to the press conference at the Capitol as well that we had with the Black Caucus, to talk about the importance of diversity and why getting rid of diversity in government, in our universities, in private business is a bad idea. Diversity is good, and we all know that, but some of our colleagues don't. Some of our folks want to roll back the progress that we have made, so we have to advocate hard against that. There are lots of issues. Y'all know, I remember learning about vouchers when I was in LULAC. I didn't know what it was back in the day. It's a fight that has been had a long time. It dies throughout the years, but now it's back again with a vengeance. It's a big priority for some. We have to advocate to keep our dollars, our public dollars in our public schools, in our neighborhood schools. It is Latinos are the majority in our schools. So a few years back, y'all remember in 2011, when Latinos became the majority, is the year that the legislature cut billions of dollars from our public school, which is not acceptable. There's a direct correlation there. So we want to make sure that we keep the dollars in. Back in 2019, when Democrats flipped 12 additional seats in the Texas House, and there was a better balance of power there, the Texas House focused on school finance, and we passed significant school finance reform, putting billions of dollars back into our schools. Last session in 2021, we maintained that level of funding, and now we know that we're losing teachers left and right for so many reasons, from not paying them what they deserve to dictating how they teach and lots of different issues that we know there. So we want to make sure that we are making sure that we give teachers a pay raise, that we give other school employees a pay raise, that we give our school districts the dollars that they need to be able to take care of their employees, so we're not losing them to other professions. But that is a big issue. We want to take care of our teachers. And so we're working hard on that to make sure that we get a pay raise for our educators. With respect to, there's a bill on community college finance. You're going to see a change in how community colleges are funded statewide. It would benefit our state, so that's one of the bills that we're going to be supporting. But there's a wide variety of things I'm happy to get into if y'all want me to touch on specific issues, or I just wanted to give an overview. But education is a big thing, helping our Latino-owned businesses, making sure that there's enough funding there for students, many of whom are first generation. I was first generation to be able to go to college. Two more things I want to put on your radar, bad bills we need to be aware of. One of them is an attempt, again, we see it every session, an attempt to try to get rid of the Texas Dream Act, which allows undocumented students to be able to pay in-state tuition. That's a fight we're going to have again. And one more fight is the Plyler versus Doe case, y'all know, is a Supreme Court case that allowed undocumented students to go to our public schools. The governor made a statement last year, and there has been legislation filed on it to try to get rid of and to not allow undocumented students to go to public school, which would be detrimental for our state. It's ridiculous, like you said, Eric. It would be. We need to make sure as an economy, our prosperity is directly linked to the education of our kids. So we want to make sure that every single kid, regardless of your zip code, has access to the best education, regardless of your status. It doesn't matter where we want to make sure that you get the education that you need so that your family can prosper. And when you try to cut that out, it's just another attack at us. It's another attack at our family members and our constituents. And so we have to be ready to gear up for that fight. So as soon as that bill, if it's set, we're going to try to do everything that we can to kill those bad bills. But if they are set for hearing, we'll be calling y'all to ask y'all to come down to Austin to testify if you can.
The attack on the LGBT community?
Yes, absolutely. So I was on a briefing call yesterday with a lot of our allied groups and our LGBT caucus. We're facing, I want to say there's 80, 90, maybe 100 bad bills right now that are attacking our community. A lot of, y'all remember a few years ago, there was a bathroom bill that was trying to determine where somebody could go. The business community joined with us and helped us kill that legislation. We want to make sure that our allied groups are helping us able to kill some of these bad bills again. It's everything from attacking our transgender community to, where you can have a drag show,